Welcome to our Maui County interviews. Today we have our interview for our mayor, Mike Molina. Mike has been on our county council for 14 years and certainly has a lot of experience. So Mike, welcome to our interview. And Mike, first question. During that 14 years, certainly you've been able to look at a lot of different policies and enact different things. What are the things that you're most proud of during that time period?
Well, thank you for the question, Paul. I would say, first of all, my environmental legislation with regards to the reduction of plastic bags, also the legislation related to the outdoor lighting bill that protects the reduced lighting that protects the nesting habits of our turtles, as well as the flight paths of our birds. And when it comes to housing, the creation of the Affordable Housing Fund, as well as the first-time home buyer down payment program. So those are just a sampling of some of the things that I'm very proud of over the last 14 years.
Well, certainly our housing crisis really is in everyone's awareness. What have you done in terms of the housing, the actual process that you did with the housing program that you did and the research that was involved with that?
Mm-hmm. Well, along with those two initiatives, I also started legislation to lower the required lot size to build ohanas on. Initially, you had to have a lot size, a minimum of 7,500 square feet. I started the legislation, and it was finished up by Councilmember Carroll after I termed out. So now you can build an ohana on a lot size as small as 6,000 square feet. So that's added a little bit more to the inventory. And right now, I'm currently working on a program called a home restoration grant. The council just appropriated $270,000 for a pilot program for any qualified property owner in each community plan district. If eligible, they would get a $30,000 grant to help rehabilitate a home that's currently uninhabitable. So those are two initiatives that I'm currently working on. And of course, I had a proposed bill that was called Bill 10, which was basically to modify the 2-1H process, which currently just requires developers to provide a minimum of 50% affordable homes. My proposal would have created more flexibility where the council could ask for more than 50%. And I did have a couple of developers that said they could work with that, but the mayor vetoed it. I'm not sure who he was listening to, and it was just portrayed as something that was not a good thing. It was not possible. And I didn't get the required 5 votes to have it, move forward. But it was an attempt, and I'm always trying to look outside of the box. And certainly we need as many tools in the toolbox to address the affordable housing crisis.
That's for sure. Our next interviewer will be Lucianne Dene. Lucianne?
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Mike, for being here.
Thank you.
Wow, where to start with the questions? Well, Mike, I think just looking at the basis, why are you running for mayor? And if you were successful to be elected, what would you term a successful first term? What would happen in your first term?
Well, thanks for the question. Good question, Lucianne. Based on my experience, not only as an elected official, but also as a member of the mayor's office as an executive assistant, these experiences combined have given me a very good understanding of the process of county government, specifically the budget process, as well as the inner workings of our departments and what their needs are in order to provide the public an acceptable level of service. I've always believed leaders should be facilitators, not dictators, and all leaders should be amenable to establishing open, positive relationships with their constituents. I had 2 uncles that served on the council many, many years ago. They, along with my training as a school teacher, taught me some very important things. And one that is to listen first, work together, and treat all opinions with respect. Following these principles, it's helped me become a better teacher, as well as a better public servant. And should I be elected to the office of mayor, I would hope that the people I hire, as a matter of fact, I will impress upon the people I hire to follow these principles, with the end result being better customer service for our constituency. And also we have, also what I feel is really important is to restore the public's confidence and faith in government. I think a combination of that and also more government efficiency will help us become a more prosperous and healthy community.
So would
that,
you see yourself kind of as hands-on or more picking really good people and let them do their job?
I don't like to micromanage. I would hope that during the hiring process, I can not be involved as much. That I would have to. Well, I've always placed great faith and trust in my people. Same thing with my staff that's out of my office. As you know, Lucian, they have that belief in strong customer service, and those are the kinds of individuals that I would want. I think the public expects a level of responsiveness from our government. I, for one, when I do get those calls from people who are concerned that they haven't been called back, especially when they call the mayor's office or departments, we do the follow-up. But if I become mayor, that's certainly I would not expect, from the public. I don't want to hear that, we call the mayor's office and nobody called us back. That will be something that will be dealt with immediately. Because, I look at myself, you're paying my salary as an elected official, therefore it's my obligation to serve you, and definitely not the other way around.
Mahalo. I think we're moving on to Mark.
Yes, Mark Joyner, next.
Hi, Mark.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
Good. Hi.
Good to see you. I just wanted to ask you, you brought up with Paul, one of your sort of big achievements has been in the area of the environment. And I'm just wondering if you could maybe outline a couple of environmental issues that you would love to see addressed as mayor that we haven't been doing the best job with.
I guess big topics of concern are shoreline erosion and sea level rise. And then we've had the, condominiums and hotels in Kahana. I think maybe we should look at, maybe look at ways to pay for that would be maybe community facilities districts, and basically a managed retreat plan, more serious thought put into it. I mean, it seems like it's something that keeps getting the proverbial can kicked down the road. So those are two major issues that I would be interested in. And I like to go exploring and seeing what other communities are doing. And also another thing, I think it's important that we continue this partnership with the University of Hawaii. I believe it's the UH Grant program.
Right.
I would definitely support more funding if it's needed to do more research and get more ideas to address these problems. I mean, it's just a matter of time. It's not a question of if, it's a matter of when.
Absolutely. One of your big issues that the entire council dealt with during your tenure are our water issues here on Maui. And I'm wondering if you can just address that a little bit. Some of the questions about what's happening with the East Maui irrigation district, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, I'm glad you brought up East Maui. I would certainly be more supportive in getting into MOUs or intergovernmental agreement with the state rather than doing any lease agreements with the large landholder. I've always believed that water is a public trust and it should be put back in the hands of people. If there's an opportunity to purchase the system, I'd certainly support that. And as far as the allocation of water from that area, we need to prioritize it. And as far as looking at how we can restore the streams, and then of course affordable housing, and maybe down the priority list is where should we send this out to other areas of Maui. But just for starters, I think we should do either a lease agreement with the state or purchase the system. And then at a later point, with input from the community, we can all together collaborate and decide where best this water should be prioritized.
Yeah, that's great. My other question, like Lucianne, I could keep you here all afternoon. but another question, obviously, is the whole issue of homeless and the fact that they all got moved out, out of the airport area. I know that we don't have enough tiny houses to house all of those people. And living in Kihei, I'm well aware of our situations here. I'm part of a group that actually brings meals to them. During the Christmas time and that sort of thing. So I'm well aware of where they are. What kinds of new things would you like to see done to address that issue here on Maui?
Well, I've spoken to the department about looking at I guess, is it called the Nanakuli model, or out in Waianae on Oahu, where they basically have their own independent community and they can oversee what's happening there. And, I believe we can work with Maui Pono to designate any potential areas that could create a community like this. And the trick, though, is also how do we bring the services closer to them?
Right.
In Paia, and I think they're doing it also in Kihei and Lahaina, the police, they're using a bus that they've converted to provide medical service and other types of services there. So I guess it moves from week to week where they can entertain clients to help address their needs. But I think right now, the way things are being done, there's a lot of division between homeless advocates and the Department of Housing and Human Concerns. So I'm hoping as mayor that we can find common ground. There's, some disputes and allegations being made that the county is not, or some of the nonprofits that are dealing with homeless, they're being somewhat insensitive to the needs of the homeless. And the bigger picture too, Mark, is now I don't know if this is true or not, but some of the homeless that are here, they're being given one-way tickets from whatever state, and basically it seems like the problem passed on to us. I would be in favor. I mean, if it's feasible for us to consider a class action lawsuit against these states that are doing this to us. I mean, if I was without shelter, certainly I would consider coming to Hawaii, where the weather is great year-round. But at some point, the state that I'm coming from, that state should take more responsibility to deal with it instead of passing it off to someone else.
Yep, couldn't agree more. Okay, great. Thanks, Mike. Next person.
Thank you.
And Kathleen, next.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for coming.
Hi,
Mark, you stole my questions. Anyway, I have a question about over-tourism. And I know we had the Maui Island plan that designated that the visitor to resident ratio couldn't exceed 33%. And I think it's come to that even early post-pandemic. And I'm just wondering if you're satisfied with the proposals made by the county council thus far, because we don't really have the infrastructure to accommodate this many visitors, whether it's traffic or parking or businesses or hospitals or ambulance, fire, etc. So,
well, let's for starters. Ironically, that was one reason why I supported the hotel moratorium. We don't need any new hotels. We need to train our focus on housing for our residents, attainable housing. And it'll give us that time to not only look at that, but look at how we manage tourism. We are taking steps in the right direction, but I think we can do more. I was open to, working with the state to see how we can enact a fee system for tourists who go to East Maui. But we were told that if we do that, we could lose federal funding for the highway. But maybe we can enact a fee system for non-residents to help offset our costs to address infrastructure concerns. Now, I don't know how constitutional it is as to whether we can just put up a big stop sign and and restrict the amount of tourists coming in. And I don't know how well the airlines would work with us on that. But I think right now that for now, those are some of the best mitigation efforts that I can think of for the moment. Enact a fee system so we can get some monies back. And also, I'm open. I think the education system as well, or if we are going to have tourists come in, let's change the whole paradigm. How we market Hawaii. I've always felt we should market Hawaii as a place for holistic healing, maybe a center for education, rather than a place to come here and party and have wild luau's. And it's so important to educate the tourists. I mean, I grew up here and I saw a different Maui growing up, and a different type of tourists that would come here. Over the years now, I guess because Maui's been marketed so much or the state of Hawaii in general, as a place for come here and do business, and let's have a good time. And I mean, I can see why we needed to do that at the time to bring in revenue, but now it's become a double-edged sword now because, you get the good with the bad. So I've always tried to compare Hawaii. When I tell tourists, when you come here, think of it as going to, say, maybe the Vatican in Rome. You don't go to the Vatican in Rome to party, right? So look at Hawaii as a holistic place, because we have many of us have such a spiritual connection with the water and the land. So I think that's one step to change the paradigm. And if we're going to bring tourists in, let's target the ones that I don't want to call it the well-to-do tourists, but the tourists that will spend money in the economy, because you're hearing stories of folks who are coming here to vacation, but they're staying in campers and vans, and they're not staying where we would hope the tourists would stay, preferably in the hotel or the resort areas. So I think those are some of the steps that I think we need to continue to take.
Well, it's surprising to me that in inflationary times, you can get a round trip. I just got a round trip airfare for some like $400 to Oakland, California, in here. And it seems like this would be more consistent with, I don't know if that reflects the quality of tourists we'd get, but so many people are coming in and a lot of them don't have a place to stay. Yeah. So much of these hotels and timeshares are offshore, and it doesn't seem like we really can profit from that. And when you say hotel moratorium, do you include timeshares, vacation rentals as well, or?
At the moment, let's start with the hotels first. It's ironic you mentioned, especially vacation rentals. I think there is a need for it, because with the hotels becoming so expensive, it's too expensive for locals to do a staycation, right? You certainly would like to. I like doing staycations, but I don't do them anymore because the rooms are just so outrageously expensive. My children came to visit me for the first time in 20 years. All three of them are on island. I have a daughter in Colorado, a daughter in Virginia, and a son in California. And they decided to do a quick little staycation instead of staying with mom and dad the whole time. They spent 2 nights at the Wailea Marriott, and my other daughter and her husband, my son-in-law, spent 2 days at the Grand Wailea. I think for the 2 days, they each paid $3,000. I mean, they're making decent money, but I said, my God, that's just outrageous. And for locals, right, for those of us whose homes are under construction, or you need to have it fumigated, you like to get away at least for a night, rather than trying to stay with relatives. Go stay at a hotel. There's no way. It's too cost prohibitive for a lot of families. So that's why maybe some of our vacation rentals could help out in that area. And that may
are you for limiting vacation rentals, like stopping new vacation rental permits, or just
the capping?
We have enough?
I think we do. We can cap it at where we're at for the time being. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you.
Mike, I will ask the next question, and it has to do with our septic systems that we have. We have our injection well issues that we've been facing for quite some time with litigation, but they're still pouring stuff offshore, affecting our coral reefs, which is our natural barrier that we have for our wetlands and everything. And also we have offshore. We have running off in Kihei. I mean, at times, I can actually smell septic as I drive by the beaches, where it's actually running off and seeping in along the shoreline. And I guess my question is, what can we do about this septic issue in terms of using maybe gray water or other things along that line for crops or other things? What would you do as mayor to address this issue?
Well, with septic systems, I guess it's a Department of Health issue. I think we'd have to go work with them. And I think several years ago, I think it was Councilmember Baisa was looking at either legislation, or she had been working with state officials to, I guess, make that legal. I'm open to doing that. My recent actions with the injection wells for West Maui and also now to provide funding for a wastewater treatment plant for the folks out in Ma'alaia, my decisions were based just on the fact that now we need to really pay attention to this stuff. I mean, I was never an expert in the environment, but even I can see we have to do whatever we can to protect our reefs from being degraded, because the whole ecosystem is just being maybe corrupted. I don't know if that's the word to use, but we got to really pay attention to this stuff. But should I be the mayor? Certainly. Hopefully my voice would be heard by not only state officials, but federal officials as well. to see what we can do. And it may cost money, but I think it's an investment that's well worth it. And I wish I had the answers myself on what best to do. But to me, if I don't have the answers, find the people that do, and let's work with the council and see what we can do. That's not too cost prohibitive, but I think there's some things we can do at least to slow the flow, if you will. Mm-hmm. So I would be open to that. And like I've told many people, my office will be open to working with environmental groups. I don't know about the current mayor, but I'll certainly be open to working with environmental groups. And in my opening comments, it's important for all elected officials, no matter whether you agree or disagree, is to maintain the line of communication done in an open and respectable way, because we can learn from each other. And I've learned a lot over the last couple of years. Lucian can remember when the injection well vote was taken for West Maui. I actually voted to support at first to take it to the Supreme Court, and it ended up in a 4-4 deadlock. But a few days after that, something came over me to really look at this closer. And then after I saw the impacts of what could happen to our reefs and our whole ecosystem, it made me something really hit me that few days after that 4-4 vote. And that's one reason why I changed my vote. And I don't know, some will say I've been on a roll ever since, but sure. it made me think. And I think everybody needs to have a lot of awareness and not always be pressured by others who, look at things differently. So anyway, and they say our environment is our economy. And those, especially the business folks, right, who wanted to take this to the Supreme Court, I told them, ironically, our environment is our economy. And if you're going to let things happen while, impressing upon us how important money is, you let things get destroyed, then there goes the cash cow.
So along that same line, Mike, I'd like to ask a question about water then as part of our resource. It's the lifeblood of our island, and it's under foreign control in many ways, and yet it is a public utility. What would you do? Would you support eminent domain if it came to that, so that we could have local control of our water? Is that something you'd support?
If it comes down to that, yes. Yeah, it makes me uncomfortable to have offshore, folks having ownership of what is a public resource.
Great, thank you. From that, I'll go into Lucianne Dene. Will ask the next questions, and maybe about water too in there too.
Lucianne,
you're on mute, Lucianne.
All right.
There we go.
I'm unmuted now. I'm going to get down to the nitty and gritty. We can have the most wonderful council. We can have a great mayor with good policies. But if we don't have good people as heads of these departments, and I think because you've had to work in 14 years, you've had to work with the good, the bad, and the ugly there. And it's certainly a lot easier with the good. So how would you decide, for instance, how to recruit and find someone to head the Department of Water Supply, the managing director, the person who's your go-to emissary, the corp counsel, these very, very important cabinet positions. Mm-hmm. What would be your process to find, the best folks, and what would you be looking for?
As I mentioned earlier, I would look for qualities in individuals that are really committed to customer service and provide more government efficiency. But what I like is the something similar to what the Blue Ribbon Panel did. Vet out nominees for boards and commissions. I would like to maybe put together a group of people that can assist me in making some recommendations as to who to hire, especially in critical departments such as water department and planning. Yeah. Because any candidate that tells you he or she has all the ideas and can find the best possible person for the job, to me, that's a red flag. I'm not ashamed to ask for help. And sometimes the answers and resources are right out there in the community. And as a matter of fact, all of my legislation throughout the years, Lucianne, has come with input from the community. You remember with the plastic bag issue, for example.
Yes.
I sought your input and help. And, together we all put it, it all came out as successful legislation. And I'm always quick to praise others. I've never always tried to take credit for everything. It's always, from the colleagues who supported it to all of our community stakeholders and resources that provided me ideas with the legislation. It's our legislation. It's never been mine. And so I'm always quick to point that out. So that's what I would like. Maybe have, put together a group of folks to assist my administration in finding the right people for the job.
Yeah. So if we have like these new departments, the Department of Agriculture, our own housing department that's separate, they are really going to need good
Yep.
leadership. Yeah.
Exactly. You got it. So, yeah, whether it's me or someone else, they're going to need some help to find, the right people to achieve our goals, right? We all want a prosperous and healthy community, and you have to find the right people for that. And as I mentioned earlier, the mayor should be more a facilitator. If I could cite one example, the recycling center in Makua, when I was a teacher there back in the 1990s, a colleague of mine suggested for that open land, at the time it was an open area, suggested maybe a recycling center. So I thought to myself, this would be a good little class project. So I discussed it with my 7th grade students and parents, and I basically suggested to them what to do, write letters to the Maui News, write letters to former Mayor Lingle and also former Governor Cayetano. And I thought it was a nice classroom project, but it actually bore fruit. We got letters back from both the governor and the mayor, and great idea. Mayor Lingle sent her, her staff member, Miss Irene Cordell, and Irene said, "When and where do you want it?" And
Wow.
It was talk about empowerment for the kids. It was a real life example of government coming to life, and it was a great moment, And that's another, a non-political achievement that I'm really, really proud of to have been a part of it. But it was a great example of how a mayor can work with the community and his staff to achieve a specific goal that helps the community.
Thank you. On to you, Mark.
Okay, great. Thanks. Mike, you talked about wanting to be transparent and wanting to communicate with the community. I personally have always had phone calls returned. Maybe it's just me from the mayor's office, but it would be great if some of the things that the council members have been doing, i.e., kind of a South Maui roundtable, or a Makawao Paia haiku roundtable, or if that kind of thing were implemented on a regular basis. I mean, we have the Kihei community group here, but I'm just wondering kind of what your thoughts are on increasing that communication so that people don't have that concern that you had with the mayor's office, because God knows, especially through things like this pandemic that we've just been through, it's critical.
Oh, I'm definitely all for that, Mark. And it's funny you mentioned that community wanting more empowerment. I think I initiated a legislation for the Mako Haiku Pai Advisory Committee. That way, on the ground level, the people that are affected the most by any land use decisions can have a say from the ground level before it gets to the Planning Commission. So, yeah, I'm definitely in favor of that. And I can see it maybe being done like maybe on a quarterly basis. Just, the mayor or the mayor's staff will be out here to do a pulse check with the community on what's needed. And one other thing with transparency that I'm open to doing is to make my appointment log open to the public. So this way, any member of the public that would like to see who's seeing the mayor, here it is. So that's one way of being really super transparent. So, I have to definitely walk the walk and as I talk the talk. So I'm open to all ways of being transparent and, of course, keeping that connection with the public.
That's always a great thing to hear. Okay. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mark.
And you're next.
Yep. Back on tourism and our dependence on a tourist economy. Mike, what industries do you think we need to further or support or develop or that you would consider to shift us from being so tourist dependent on our economy?
Okay, let me first say, tourism will still be part of it, but I think we need more legs to create that three-legged stool, so to speak. Expanding agriculture. I would like to see us expand agriculture to the point where we become food exporters and not only food importers. We have to work with our small as well as our large farmers, work with Maui Pono, or maybe use some county-owned lands to lease out lands to our farmers and ranchers. Maybe even lower the water rates is one way, on top of issuing grants to those in need. Maybe establishing like a co-op where farmers can share large equipment, because purchasing a large piece of equipment can be quite costly. So if maybe farmers can lease equipment, or at least maybe the county can buy equipment that farmers can use or rent out. That could be one way of saving costs. Another area I'd like to see Maui become is an educational training ground for maybe we can partner with large universities or private entities to provide training in, say, the healthcare professions. We're a population that's getting older, and we definitely need healthcare professionals as we age. So I would like to see us develop these partnerships where we can do the training right here on Maui and save families and students the expense of going off island. Also, high tech is another thing we need to continue to work on and expand. Recently, Maui High School, their robotics team, I mean, this is great with Maui Economic Development Board and what they're doing with our kids. I'd like to see us expand that, and if as much as possible, provide them opportunities to stay here, because it'd be such a tragedy to train them here and then they go off and take their skills elsewhere. But I'm sure many of these young people would love to come back to Maui. But it sort of ties into housing opportunities too, so which is why the housing crisis is so critical. But those are two areas I would like to see us expand upon, because let's grow our professionals here as much as possible and save the students and parents costs from sending them off island.
I hear you. Yeah, we used to actually have housing. I taught at the college. I retired last June, but we used to have housing for students. Yeah. And they took that away. But yeah, it seems like right now, I'm not quite certain about the numbers, but Maui College, they got their status because they had 4 bachelor programs that were mostly distance learning, and they could use some more advanced degrees.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, we can share the cost with the too. I mean, we can invest in that as well. Establish a partnership. Sorry, Paul.
Great. Well, I wanted to ask more questions about what Ann also mentioned about the affordable housing issue. Certainly a crisis that we're facing as a community, and one of the big things that we need is infrastructure. And for what is your position on the county taking responsibility to have land set aside, also develop the infrastructure, so then that nonprofits or other groups can then take over then the whole aspect of the construction and getting people in for different AMIs. Because right now we have a situation where we have infrastructure is primarily with one contractor, and that one contractor does not have fixed bids. They have this thing where they can keep on adding money more and more, and all of a sudden the price goes up sometimes, another 50%. And I guess the question is, what would you do as mayor to deal with this issue of infrastructure need that we have, and having it be so that there'd be a more even playing field for all the other businesses that would like to have to do infrastructure for the county, but are somehow not in that good old boy network, or whatever you want to call it.
Well, it comes down to transparency, that's for sure. Because I've questioned that over the years too. Because the contractor gets the bid. The next thing you know, they're halfway done. Then they come to the departments, and the departments come to council saying that, due to unanticipated cost overruns, we need to approve more money, and we're sort of caught because you don't want to, you can't say no because they're almost done with it, and honestly, I don't know how we can do that. I mean, there's got to be a way to catch these guys that are really, in my opinion, taking advantage. They're exploiting the system, but in terms of the infra and how we can open it up more, there's got to be. I'd be open to looking at finding a more transparent process, maybe even audit how this process is being done. And I know that recommendation for the county taking on the infrastructure cost that came from the comprehensive affordable housing plan, or I think it was in there, and that was a plan that I requested the $250,000 for to look at that. So I think we can maybe find a way to open up the bidding process, so other people, so at least make it more competitive. It seems like I'm with you that certain organizations always seem to get the bids, and it does make you wonder, how do these guys do it? And then next thing you know, we get caught when the project's almost done. Whoop, cost overruns.
Well,
and then it's always blamed on the shipping cost and cost of fuel and whatnot.
I understand, but again, when they do their bidding, they should do their due diligence. And what about having it so that we have fixed bids? That they bid, they have to finish it, and if they have cost overruns, they have to eat it, and they'll go into their profit. Then because again, it's a big disadvantage for the other operators that are trying to get into it. And again, it's a very small elite club that's only allowed to do the infrastructure work here in the county, and it doesn't seem like it's supportive for our community at all.
Yeah.
And you could help pass some legislation so that we could rectify that.
I would definitely be in favor of that. Yeah. We need to level the playing field, because it seems like only certain folks are getting all the benefits out of this process. So any type of legislation, I would certainly look into that for sure.
Great.
And hopefully we get buy-in from the county council as well.
Good.
And that's why it's important to establish that mayor-council relationship. It's so important that at least we can. There's going to be some points of disagreements on many issues, but if we can all come to consensus on an issue like this, then I think our community is better for it.
So I'm just going to do a little follow-up question from that then, because again, the relationship between the county council and mayor is so crucial to the functioning, effective, efficient functioning of our community. And it has been quite contentious at times.
Mm-hmm.
I've witnessed this back and forth in terms of some of the issues and some of the frustrations, certainly that goes on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
How would you work with creating more synergistic relationship between those two branches of our government?
Well, first of all, refrain from name calling, or calling. Well, here's one that really sticks in my craw. I think I proposed the bifurcation of the Department of Housing before the charter amendment moved forward the previous year, along with Mr. Sinensi's proposal for the Department of Agriculture. And I can never forget the press release issued by the mayor. He called those decisions by us reckless and irresponsible. I mean, there's a better way to disagree, and it starts there. Because once you start hammering people like that, it's very undignified in my opinion, and it just fractures the relationship. So I would start there. I'd certainly offer every council member the opportunity to call me and meet with me one-to-one. Just let me know what's on your mind and what we can do to make things better for you. And and if I disagree and attempt to veto, it will not be done in a mean-spirited way. I've always been that way. I don't chastise my colleagues for any decisions they make that's contrary to mine. I just keep it to the issue and not personalize it. So as mayor, I would need to set a good example, and I will, in terms of diplomacy and respect for my council members.
Great. Lucianne will be next. And you're on mute.
Yes. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Mike. Well, I'd like to drill down a little bit about how things get done. Obviously, you've been at it for a number of years, Mike, and you've seen promises come and go, and we all get a little smarter after things sound so good. They sound too good to be true, and man, they were too good to be true. They just don't happen. The promises don't happen. But I'm going to ask you about a project you're probably very familiar with. You sat through 2 years worth of hearings on Wailea 670, and you chaired a very contentious committee. You kept those cats marching forward, and it wasn't easy. But you were very, very gracious during that time. So this project is back for its final approval, and the planning department just doesn't seem to have any difficulty with the fact that the plan that's being proposed is not the plan that you guys in the council approved. Mm-hmm. No one's gone back to amend it. The department just isn't saying boo. I know you don't want to interfere if you get elected mayor. You don't want to interfere with your department heads, but how would you put in a situation like this, and hearing from the community, work to have a fair process where developers on a project like this, a very large project, don't say one thing and then do another?
Mm-hmm. Well, let me first start by saying, Lucian, there's always exceptions to the rule. I know I mentioned I try to do as much as possible a hands-off management style, but there are times when you have to come in and intervene if there's an outcry from the community. So I certainly would stick my nose into it and find out why, for example, why my director, my planning director, is taking this approach that's with this plan. I guess I've heard that this is being driven by the applicant as well, or they're assisting. So I would question why. Now I don't know if the department's understaffed or maybe the planners involved are not experienced enough. But it's sort of like a case of the fox guarding the hen house in some ways. I mean, it could be argued. So that is where I think, as mayor, if there is enough concern, needs to step in and ask why. Why wasn't this being followed as established by the council way back when? So I wouldn't hesitate to step in.
So to follow up, appointing a planning director is a very important position, and I have a lot of respect for our current planning director and deputy director. I think that they've really tried to take a very cumbersome department and turn it into some direction. But I have no idea, does the mayor sit down and talk with their department heads like frequently and say, how are things going and how are we making progress on these kind of goals? I mean, would you see that would be your style, or do you think that should be a mayor's style?
Well, I think you need to monitor what's going on. I mean, to a point where you don't want to be, micromanage too much, but in critical departments or high-profile departments like planning and water, you need to keep your ear to the ground a lot, I think. I mentioned the planning audit. It's funny, 2 years ago, I didn't get the support from my colleagues to audit the planning's zoning enforcement division. I don't know if you guys have received a copy yet. I did. It was a 116-page report, and it's supported a lot of the concerns that have been expressed by the community with, I guess the department has been dysfunctional in some ways. The interviewed employees and the comments about the management was, I'll just say that, not very flattering. I can forward you a copy of that. And now I think it's, we should stop from, bashing people and blaming. Now let's find solutions to how we can have this department perform more efficiently and address the concerns. So, yeah, I think it's definitely important that, you'll have to step in at some point. So I guess maybe when I said that I kind of have a hands-on approach, maybe I think I was a little bit too loose with that. But when you get concerns coming from the community, the mayor needs to get directly involved. So, because this job, as I see, it's not just about cutting ribbons and kissing babies. It's about, stepping in and addressing the real issues. And it comes with the territory. As the great Harry Truman once said, the buck stops here.
Yeah.
And I recall, the founder of McDonald's, Ray Kroc, he was asked, what was the secret to his success? Hire good people, real simple philosophies.
It is so true. Any municipality that you see and you can point with pride what they're doing, they will have a good managing director. They will have a competent person at the head of their water policy. They'll have, good people working in the planning department, working to improve things. But, it's not every day that happens. You have to have a particular type of leader, and it is hard to recruit good people. We don't pay a lot, and, the private sector pays more. So it is an upward type of trajectory. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. Let's see. We're moving on to Mark.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Mike, I first of all, I have to compliment you on being so just incredibly diplomatic.
It comes with being a school teacher. We're trying to manage kids, you know.
I guess so. Boy, you understated at least a couple of those last questions with Lucianne, and you quoted Harry Truman. I'll quote Butch Cassidy. It's like, don't sugarcoat it, Sundance. Tell us how you really feel. So anyway, I couldn't agree more. I'm so happy that we have Lucianne on as one of our questioners today. I have a lot of those same concerns. And I can, from where I'm sitting right now, I can actually see Wailea 670, some of the territory that it is in Paul. And I've been concerned about it for years. So, boy, if we could clean up the planning department, that would be wonderful. This will hopefully be edited out.
Yeah.
I got to remember we're recording.
Yeah.
So anyway, what would be your thinking in terms of the issues that we've had post-pandemic in terms of the infrastructure, the parking, the everything that's involved? I think you've already addressed this to a large extent, but and I really like your idea too about how to market the island versus the way it has been marketed. Certainly in more of a Pono way. And so anyway, I just love to get your quick thoughts on that before we sign off.
Okay. You're talking in terms of just general parking in terms of at our areas where folks like to go. Is that what you're?
Also making the island feel a little more like it was when you grew up.
Boy, I could to further expound on that. I think we need money to address the infrastructure concerns first, and it should come from the visitors, folks who are visiting here, because quality of life is a big thing for me too. Yes, it's nice to have the revenue from that the tourism industry generates, but it impacts all of our quality of life, traffic, and so that my philosophy is get the money from the folks that can pay. And looking at what we've just done in the budget session, where we've reduced the tax rate for homeowners, but we're increasing the rates for those who buy houses for investment purposes, and also the hotel property tax rates, and I believe it's some of the short-term rentals. We've kept the rate stable. I guess the mayor had wanted to drop those rates. I think we need to maintain that flow of money as it relates to the industry because of the impacts. And like I mentioned to you earlier, maybe enacting a fee system at some of our county parks, that would help. But how to bring Maui back to a time when it was much more tranquil, that's going to be tough. I certainly would like to see, I can remember as a kid going down to Kihei and Makena when it was all dirt road, and my dad used to tell me back in the day, you couldn't give land in Kihei away because a lot of it was marshland. But, as folks came to the island, and to their credit, they helped develop South Maui into a very viable and vibrant area. But I think it just starts with educating our tourists and being very sensitive to the places that they go to, not to overlove a certain area, especially in a very sensitive environmental area. And be smart. Don't turn your backs to the oceans, because you hear all these stories of tourists getting swept away, and then that costs us money. We have to send our firefighters or our rescue people out there and risking their lives to find someone who, with better education, could have avoided a potential tragedy, not only for themselves, but for others. So again, the key is the educational aspect, not only culturally, but teach them common sense and some sensitivity to the environment as well.
Yeah, I actually had to save a kid down at Keavakapu yesterday. So anyway.
Yeah, accidents do happen, but with education, maybe an accident can be avoided, especially for those who've never been to the islands.
Right. Absolutely. Okay, Mike, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark. We appreciate your input.
Next will be Ann.
Okay, Mike. So I commend you on that commitment towards zero waste with your plastic bag ban. And I guess I thought, as in last month, we were supposed to have a ban on single-use plastics, which I was thrilled to hear, but maybe that got put on hold or something. So what further programs are awaiting to address further zero waste, such as like recycling or green programs like that?
I believe
rendering green waste into beneficial agricultural products and things like that.
I believe there was, I think the 3-can plan, I think was proposed by the previous administration. I'm not sure where that program went. I know it was there was a pilot program to basically, my wife's, I'll use my wife as an example. She's from San Diego. And of course, in California, I think it's a requirement that you have to separate all of your waste.
Right.
You know, I believe the county did experiment with that in South Maui someplace. I don't know, Mark, if you can verify that for me, the Department of Environmental Management. I don't know if maybe it stopped because maybe it was potentially cost prohibitive, but I think we should keep our minds open to looking at programs like that. And with regards to the single-use plastic, I believe we did pass it because I went into McDonald's the other day and they cited the new law why they're not issuing, certain plastics out anymore. But I'm definitely want to keep an open mind to anything that can mitigate plastic into our environment. And also, I'd like to see us maybe potentially open up the landfill. I think it's currently closed right now. This way, there's more opportunities for people to get rid of their waste rather than letting it build up. We may have to consider bumping up the cost for dropping off our waste, because I think it's currently $4, but and I know with the county we do subsidize, but if we do want to expand recycling and the getting rid of more waste, we may have to considering bumping up the cost.
It is $4. I just went to the landfill.
$4, right? Yeah,
it is $4 now. Yeah, it changed this year.
Yeah, in the future we may to help offset the cost of the county, and of course now you look at the minimum wage being raised, so everything is going up. So once wages go up, then everything is relative. So we may have to look at that. It's not easy, asking for adjustments upward. Seems like a lot of people have become accustomed to getting everything for free or for very little, but the reality is everything costs money, and some of the responsibility has to be taken on by the public, and at least keep it to an amount that's attainable. And maybe better to do like a small incremental increases rather than wait a few years and then all of a sudden hit the public with a big shock increase.
Right. Well, you can't enforce that people to recycle, but 30 years ago, I remember in Maui where they recycled plastic, and they had industry here where they made it into like picnic tables and furniture, and they took colored glass, and they ground it together. You still see that in the planters at Maui College. And I don't know what happened to those industries. They just went away. Things like that, creative industries like that make use of recycling here on our island.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and on that subject, I think a mayor can be a voice to work with our schools, both private and public, to advocate recycling education to kids. I think when you teach children at a young age, then to learn those habits, and by the time they become adults, that's one way of mitigating the amount of recyclable stuff going into our landfill. So. I guess I'm being very pro-teacher, very pro-education. So Great. I think that's one way the mayor can, do things like that, to go talk to the state legislators or talk to the teachers union or to various private schools to see what the county can do to help promote a lot of these recycling programs or make it a part of their curriculums.
Public service announcements.
There you go. Yeah.
Like George Kahanamoku on the water, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, thank you, Ann. And I'm going to ask the last question, Mike.
Okay.
And my question is there anything that we have not covered that you'd like to talk about? Is there any kind of summary that you'd like to give as you're running for this very important office here in our county?
Okay, well, I'll choose this topic. I definitely would appreciate your endorsement. I'm up against some very high-powered, money-wise individuals. If you have taken a look at the recent campaign spending report, it's a couple of the higher profile names are getting big monies, especially one candidate getting, $4,000 donations from, off-island sources. I've just limited myself on who I'm going to accept money from. Most of my donors are retirees, working class folks, and I guess the proverbial everyday people. I've stopped I used to take donations from developers, but over the last few years, I've just changed my tune, and that way, to me, you just come across cleaner. As they say, the optics. If I would hate to have people say you're on the tape because you took these big donations from various corporations. I'm not like that. If I make a decision, it's definitely not based on who donated to my campaign. And of course, the optics, some people will say, if any candidate who accepts large amounts of money will have to try and defend. And now, will they say the person who gave them $4,000 will, and the person that didn't give you donations, will they have equal access to your office or influence? I mean, human nature might say, well, this guy gave me this amount of money, and maybe I should listen to him or her more. To me, by not accepting those large amounts of money, it just makes it cleaner, levels the playing field. And certainly it's a choice of each candidate, as to who they accept money from and the amount. So I'm very small money, as you can see. I mean, we have $9,000 left in our coffers, and I think you just had 2 or 3 donations from one of the other candidates, and they have that. But we're just going to do things the old-fashioned way and just go out and touch as many people as we can, spread our message. And, we may not have a lot of money, but we've got a lot of heart and soul to serve the citizens of Maui County.
Great. Thank you, Mike, and for this interview and for running for this very important office, and for after 14 years of service to really go after it again to another office. So I greatly appreciate your public service over the years, Mike, and what you've been doing for our county and supporting our county in many ways. And if you viewers, if you wanted to check out more interviews, again, it's very important that you become an informed voter. If you look at our county council interviews that we have, everyone on the entire county can vote for county council members. So it's not just and same with our mayor also. So again, be an informed voter, and don't forget to vote. It'll be happening. Mail-in ballots will be around July 27th that you'll be receiving them, and our primary is on the 13th of August. Mahalo.
Okay.